Welcome to the Tech Simple podcast. Independent insights into the latest AV technologies, as well as tips and best practices to optimize AV solutions for modern workplace and learning environments. Here are your hosts, David and Jonathan from Konnectus AV Consulting.
Well, welcome back everyone to another episode of the Tech Simple podcast. As always, I'm joined by my good friend David. How are you?
Hey Jonathan, I'm great mate. How are you?
I'm doing amazingly today. I hear we're going to talk about something that's pretty cool, acoustics. Is that right?
100%. We're going to talk about the relationship between acoustics and sound systems. And specifically, here's a question. Can a sound system overcome the shortcomings of a room's poor acoustic properties? And I think the answer we're going to explore is maybe somewhat of a surprise to some people. We're going to go and look at some real life examples. You're going to talk us through those. We'll dive into some tips and advice on how to treat a room and improve the room acoustics. And then lastly, we'll maybe go a little bit more technical and look into some of the testing a room and the acoustic properties. And that's going to sort of really help us understand where we need to focus our time and energy to, improve room acoustics and then get it ready for working in harmony with the right sound system. So that's the agenda in a nutshell. Why don't we dive straight in, Jonathan, and you can tell us a little bit about some examples. We'll start with a simple one.
Okay, well, let's take a simple example, a small meeting room. These days, they're everywhere. Since COVID happened, everybody's doing video conferencing, remote learning, working from home. Now, these types of rooms, what type of equipment goes in them? Well, you go out and you buy a Zoom meeting room or a Microsoft Teams meeting room, and you put it in, and that normally consists of a sound bar with a microphone, camera, and speaker, and maybe a touch panel. And they're really just set and forget type situations. Once you put it in the room and type in your user credentials, there's really no manipulation or adjustment or configuration of the audio settings. So everything that happens in that room, acoustically good or acoustically bad, is going to go straight into that microphone and come straight out of those speakers. You don't have any choice.
Right, so basically if the room hasn't been prepared for optimal sounds, even without technology, it's going to be, probably a poor experience for all concerned on a video conference call in that example.
Well, that's exactly right. Now, if I was to move on and say, let's go something a little bit more complex, maybe something like a large training room or a hall or maybe a church or multi-purpose rooms. Well, here we start actually using higher grade or higher specification equipment. So we might have speakers that we can actually steer or manipulate to say where we want the sound to come out of. We might have microphones that we can manipulate and block out certain areas where we exclude those areas so it doesn't listen. And then we also have a software component like a DSP or an audio processor. And there we can actually choose which frequencies we would like to boost up or we would like to reduce, depending on what's happening in the space. So with this type of equipment, there is a level of manipulation and control that we can apply to improve what's happening in the space. And this is particularly important for spaces where you might not actually be able to do anything about it. It might be a heritage space. So we need that level of manipulation to slightly improve the situation.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, spending a bit of money and also focusing on good practice design can definitely improve the situation. However, as we know, you just won't get to that 100% really high quality output unless you consider hand in hand the acoustics of the space and the sound system. They need to sort of blend together as one. So let's move on to some tips and advice. We've got a room, we know it's got some acoustic issues which we need to solve. What are some of the tools that we can be using to make those adjustments, Jonathan?
Look, there's really kind of 5 key different things you can do in a space to improve the acoustics. And when we say improve the acoustics, we're really focusing on echoes and reverberation. They're kind of the key things. So the first one that most people think about with acoustics is acoustic panels, and they're normally made from foam or fiberglass, and we can put them on the walls or the surfaces to absorb excess sound energy. The other ones are bass traps, and we place these in the corners of the spaces, and they really target the low end frequencies and the boominess of a room. The other ones, again, these are treatments for the space, are diffusers, which scatter the sound waves to reduce echoes. Of course, we don't have to just put things on the walls. There's also the option, if you look up, you can put ceiling tiles or acoustic tiles on your ceiling. This is actually used a lot in restaurants where, you have lots of seats and tables, everyone's sitting around. There's no surfaces to put anything on. And obviously everyone having dinner is quite loud. We use the ceiling to absorb a lot of that excess energy. And the last one, actually, a lot of people overlook this one, and that's the actual furnishing in the room. So I'm talking about the types of chairs. Do you have hard plastic chairs or do you have fabric chairs? Do you have any rugs or soft coverings over your furniture? This really actually helps a lot to reduce reflections. So that's kind of 5 key things you can look at when improving the acoustics of a space.
The tools in the toolbox for an acoustics professional, I guess you'd say. Now let's go a little bit more technical. We have to analyze the current state in terms of the current acoustic properties, don't we? And to do that, there's a suite of different tests that can, I guess, be performed. Maybe let's look at those, mate. If you could explain bit by bit in not too much complex language. But I think it'd be useful just for the audience to understand what can be done and why, and then based on results, what type of results we should be expecting.
Yeah, look, there are a few different tests, and to be honest, you can get quite a good baseline understanding of a room just with your mobile phone. These days, there's apps you can download to actually take these measurements. So a measurement like impulse response, and this is where pop a balloon or do a loud clap and see what the reverberation is. There's things like gated decay or spectral decay. But the other key one that a lot of people are interested in is one called RT60. And that's all about reverberation in the room. And that's very easy to measure on your phone with an app. It's not as accurate as if you got an acoustic consultant to come and do the tests, but it would really actually give you a good indication of what your room is like.
And so for, let's say, a conference room, you were talking about that earlier in one of your examples. What type of results are we trying to get to ideally?
Well, that one, the main thing is reverberation. And what you're looking for is a reverberation time of between 0.5 and 1 second. That'll give you optimal result for video conferencing. But I just want to say this as well, David. You can go overboard with acoustic treatment as well. So the other end of the spectrum is if you apply too much acoustic treatment and there's not much reflection happening, the room can sound very dead. Now, for a video conferencing room or just a meeting room where people are in, this can make people sound a little bit strange and it's a bit unnerving and you're not quite sure what's going on, but your brain is saying something's not quite right here.
Well, that makes sense. And probably the trap there is trying to do it ad hoc and maybe not using the expertise of a professional, like anything really. But I've watched some acoustic consultants in action, and we even do a little bit of it ourselves here. And just by using some computer software and some modeling of a space and applying, the different treatments in a computer model, it's amazing how quickly you can get to the outcome you're looking for, isn't it?
Yeah, the computer models let you put different treatments on different walls and test it out. So essentially that means you can test it on the computer before you have to go and buy anything and put it into the room. It's a much more efficient way of doing it and means you don't end up spending more than you need to.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I think that's it for today's podcast on acoustics and sound systems. Once again, the key takeaways here are measure your room, help by a professional is highly recommended on the acoustics front, obviously the audio front as well. And I think what you'll find is if you work hand in hand, the acoustics and the sound system and work on those designs together, you'll get the best outcomes every time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tech Simple podcast. To like, share, or discover more episodes, head over to Spotify. If you'd like to talk to us about AV in your workplace or learning environment, book an initial discovery call with David or Jonathan at konnectus.com.au. And remember,